Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you gardening inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you for listening. I hope this show is something that you'll look forward to checking in with every week. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Gardening Utah aims to inspire you and keep you in the know of what tasks you should be accomplishing in your yard and meet amazing, informative experts along the way. This show airs on the radio on the weekends here in Utah at 10 a.m. on 860 AM KKAT, and episodes drop every weekend on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Have you heard of Botanicals? I'm talking about that store that is on about 86 South State that has like the really large outdoor container pots, or the one in Kaysville, which is formerly Tri-City Nursery, and now called Botanicals. Have you been there? Have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts. But today we have special guest Niki Hancock from Botanicals. And let me tell you, I have yet during this show to come across someone just as completely inspiring and well-spoken with regard to the benefits of gardening, the reasons why you would garden, how you pick something out that speaks to you and talks to you, how to beautify the areas around you. I was so inspired by this interview with Niki. I am so excited for you to hear it. And in fact, since we recorded the episode, I went out to Botanicals in Kaysville. In fact, last Saturday, Cameron Alcott, who's also on the show with us today, from Progressive Plants, he did a class up there last Saturday on how to design with drought-tolerant perennials. And I went on out there so that I could listen to Cameron's class, say hello to some listeners, shout out to the ones that I got to meet in person in Kaysville, and see Niki Hancock in person and watch her do her thing at Botanicals. And it was even more inspiring than I thought it would be to watch her walk around with a group of people around the nursery and help them select the different plants and why that they would want. It was so inspiring. I'm actually going to post a little video I took on the Gardening Utah Instagram page because I just absolutely loved the things that she would say about how you select your plants. And it's, you know, you obviously have to involve the science around, is it an annual or a perennial? And is this going to work in my climate and that kind of a thing? But she adds another extra flair on how it speaks to you, etc. I loved it. So I can't wait for you to hear this interview. But for now, we're going to learn how and when to pick watermelon in the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
My tip of the week is, when do you pick your watermelon and how do you know they're ripe? Well, first of all, we've been getting this question a lot lately because it is that time of year when the watermelons start to go ripe. Now, there's nothing worse than planting this beautiful watermelon and watering it all year long and watching it grow with anticipation. You cannot wait to cut into that delicious fruit, only to find that it is just not ripe yet. Well, I'm going to give you 3 ways to know that it is time to pick. And this is first and foremost, this is the most important part of the picking process. So when you're tempted to pick the watermelon, you have to look at what's called the tendril. Now, what is the tendril? It's just off of the green stem and right underneath the first leaf. And it's kind of like a curly cube. It's like this curly little green tendril, and quite often it's wrapped around something. If it is green, leave the watermelon, don't touch it, don't disturb it at all. That is the number one sign that the watermelon plant is still feeding that watermelon. As soon as it starts to go brown, that's when you know it's getting close. So if the tendril is green, let it be, let it continue to grow and continue to ripen. If it is totally brown, then you're going to want to look at these other next steps. So the thumping method, I'm not a fan of. I have never quite figured out when you thump a watermelon, whether it's in the ground or in the store, whether or not it's ripe. It's just not fail-safe because it kind of depends on the type of watermelon you have. So, but you can just pick it up a little bit without disturbing the stem and thump it with the palm of your hand. And sometimes when they're ripe, they'll make a really hollow sound. But again, I've never perfected that method, but I usually do give it a thump just to make sure, because sometimes it'll give you a clue. Now, the last thing that you're going to want to know is the surface color of the watermelon is going to get pretty dull when it's ripe. So you're going to want to notice that. And then the underside of that watermelon, when you pick up the underbelly and you kind of turn it and look at it, the portion that's touching the ground, if it's white, let it be. But it starts to turn a light green or yellow when it is time to pick. So those are the main things to look for. Check the underbelly, see if it's turning green or yellow, and check that tendril right off of the first stem. And if that's turning brown, you're going to get a really, really delicious, sweet watermelon.
And that's your Gardening Utah Tip of the Week, brought to you by The Advocates. If you're in an accident, you deserve an advocate. Call 801-355-5550 or visit UtahAdvocates.com. Never miss a tip for your garden and never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
This year, I have 2 watermelon varieties growing. I've got one called Orange Glow. Oh my gosh, it's seriously my favorite watermelon that I've ever grown. It's, I think, the 4th year that I've grown it. They are really large and they are bright orange in the middle and they are super, super sweet. And, you know, I get maybe a handful of them, but I juice them in the morning or, oh my gosh, we just eat them fresh. They're so amazing. And then I have a sugar baby, of course, because those are quick, easy to grow and a lot smaller and you get them a little bit earlier. What else do I have growing on right now? I have got so many pepper plants. I went a little bit crazy this year with new different varieties of peppers that I've never tried. I like to kind of grow things you can't find at the farmer's market or at the grocery store. So I do a lot of really rare varieties and I'll share those with you guys on our Instagram. So make sure you're following me at Gardening Utah because I like to give updates on all the kind of weird, rare varieties of cucumber and pepper and tomatoes that I'm growing in the garden and squash also. But this year I have some of the coolest looking peppers. There's one called Buena Mufalata. I think I might be not pronouncing that correctly, but they are dark purple. They look like cayenne peppers as far as the shape, but they're dark purple. And as they ripen, they get red. And so on the plant, it's super ornamental because they're a mixture between purple and as they go from purple to red, they kind of turn a blush orange. They're so pretty and they are so hot. And I can't wait to make I'm going to dehydrate some and make powder similar to cayenne pepper, but it's just dehydrating whatever flavor of pepper that is and turning it into powder. And I like to mark them all differently so we can kind of, over the winter, do a little taste test and remind yourself of the amazing different peppers that you had in the garden. I've also I just barely picked my first larger tomato. So you're way ahead of me if you've been picking large tomatoes, but it is almost BLT season, baby. There is literally nothing better than a slice of fresh tomato from your garden on a piece of toast with a little bit of mayo. Oh my goodness, I can't even deal. And I've also got tons of cherry tomatoes. I'm sure all of you do as well. And I really went slim this year on my summer squash. I only planted 2 different zucchinis. And let me tell you what, we have more than we would ever want in our house. So I'm going to be doing a lot of zucchini bread this weekend. And we've just been incorporating it in just about anything. And now before the break, we are going to jump on over to Cameron Alcott. And Cameron is going to give us this week's Progressive Plants Proven Winner of the Week.
The Progressive Plants Proven Winner of the Week.
The proven winner of the week this week is the Puxter Blue Butterfly Bush. Now, this is one of my favorites because it is very well behaved. It only gets about 2 to 2.5 feet tall and wide, has full-size butterfly bush blooms on them, and they attract butterflies and other pollinators that you wouldn't even imagine. It was the 2020 Flowering Shrub of the Year, and it earned its reward perfectly with how it performs in the landscape. I've used it along pathways, and when you use it in masses, it just looks so amazing. And it's probably my favorite shrub this year.
She's more than just gardening puns. and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and today we have a special treat. We've got Cameron Alcott with Progressive Plants, and for the first time on the show, today we have Niki Hancock, who is the CEO of Botanicals. So Niki, tell me a little bit about you and Botanicals.
Oh wow, that's a lot. Well, I am the founder of Botanicals. It's a business that I operate now with two of my siblings, my brothers. And we've been in business for almost 20 years, which absolutely blows my mind. But we started down in Southern Utah primarily as an interior scape company. And we also did patio design because it's very popular down there. And we knew right off the bat that we didn't want to be landscapers because it's very hot. So we wanted to be able to work in controlled spaces. And we're fourth generation greenhouse rats. So we're carrying on a horticultural legacy that was started by my great grandmother during the Depression to help her family survive. Our grandparents on our mom's side have a floral shop and greenhouses in the Ogden area. And then in the late 70s, my parents moved to St. George to help get a greenhouse business established there. And so we kind of grew up in it. And anyway, I hated it as a kid, I must admit, hated dirt under my fingernails. But once I was up and out, I really, I just couldn't get away from it. And what kind of became a side hobby and then a passion and my own line of inquiry that I couldn't seem to get away from, one day became a business. And so that's how we started. We've been very fortunate to ride the tidal wave of growth in Southern Utah. And we've always had an eye on someday operating full-scale garden centers, having everything that you could possibly need. But we really always tried to carve out a niche of starting with what you can grow in a pot. That was kind of our beginning point. So I think 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, we bought the pottery store that's located in Sandy on State Street. And there was one in St. George. We had purchased a lot from them over the years. And when they were ready to retire, we bought that business and changed the name to Botanicals. And then this year we have taken the tiger by the tail and we are merchandising the retail section for what was formerly Tri-City Nursery in Kaysville. So they decided that they wanted to go back into strictly contractor sales, and they approached our company and asked if we would come and merchandise that. And so I have packed up and moved from Southern Utah, my beloved desert home, and here I am in Northern Utah once again, and thrilled to be here operating this. So, that's a nutshell for you.
That is a huge nutshell.
It really is. Sorry.
No, it's absolutely fascinating because, a lot of us in the nursery business are just family, I'm second generation, you're fourth generation, and, worst case of Stockholm syndrome ever. So, we all tried to get out, we couldn't. So we went back to it. See, one of the things that fascinated me about your particular story was the fact that you were using containers and, doing the interior scapes and also using them outside of container gardens, because that's something that I myself in particularly weak in. So I just was like, wow, this is really kind of fascinating. And then, when I heard that you took over the Tri-City North location, I was like, I want to meet these people.
Well, I kind of wonder if part of that came out of the fact that I would spend my school year in the greenhouse growing and weeding. And let's face it, Cameron, as you know, you get the grunt, terrible jobs as a kid when you're raised in that atmosphere. So it was like,
dumping.
That's part of why I hated it. But then my summers, I'd come up to spend, my grandparents had retired, but my uncles were still running Gibby Floral at the top of Riverdale Road. And I'd spend my summers learning how to do the floral design and climbing cherry trees with my cousins. And I loved that always. And so when the opportunity arose to start moving into the pottery aspect, and there had been a small little shop for a while right in the middle of St. George, and it was teeny, but I'd never seen the huge ceramic containers. And I literally walked in and it took my breath away, and I met the owner, and we just instantaneously were fast forever friends and started working together. And so the way I always looked at it was, it's the term I like to use is living sculpture, because these pots, they are works of art, but they're works of art that change and grow over time. And so when you pair the right plant with the right pot, or you find that perfect pot that you can have water flow through and over, it's magic. And as silly as it sounds, I'm getting chills right now, because it's true. It's magic. And it's something that really feeds your soul. And it's something that just, they say a thing of beauty is a joy forever. And that's how I feel about what it is that we do. So.
Yeah, I was immediately taken by your knowledge of, the containers and basically what you just described. I'm like, oh, wow, here's another person that I can kind of identify with now, just in a niche that I really don't know anything about. So I just, I remember walking around your nursery up at Kaysville. You were showing me all these pots, and I'm like, holy cow, the possibilities for this are just endless. I had no idea, just the sheer amount of possibilities and of beauty that you could make with all sorts of different things. I mean, it was amazing. People need to go and see this.
Well, we definitely are the largest importer and supplier in, probably Utah, Idaho, Wyoming. I don't think there's anybody that has the selection that we have. And the fun thing, when we purchased the pottery store and went through, we started going directly to the source. And so my brothers and I have been fortunate enough to travel to Vietnam and to meet with the manufacturers. And we can literally now, we have the capacity to do our own design work too. So there's things that we create that you can't get anyplace else in the world. And we can have those things manufactured for us. And talk about generational quality though, too. You visit the factories and sometimes these are 500-600-year-old kilns that are in operation. And the thing that I love about them is that they do, short of dropping them off the back of a truck, not that I've ever done that, of course, they don't break. So they don't disintegrate. They don't, even though you can get beautiful pottery that's European or that's from Mexico, over time, we've all seen those terracotta things just crumble, and these things are like stoneware. So they literally will last for generations. And the glazes, there's no two pots that are exactly the same. And so some of the things that you get are just so unique. And it was cool to get to visit and see the care that's put into it. There's so many things that I never would have known, where the people who are creating them literally have a signature that they'll put underneath the glaze, or sometimes you'll see it scratched in the bottom of the pot. But they have these things that they do, they care about it. They work these things by hand. There is such an artistry to it that it's not like you're buying something that just got manufactured and thrown out the door en masse. So when I talk about focal points or accent pieces, and I often will work with customers who come in and they don't know what they want. And my first assignment is just go spend 5 or 10 minutes or 15 or 20 or however long it takes you, but don't come back and talk to me again until you have found the thing that sings to your soul, whether it's a color or a shape or whatever. And then we can build anything else around that. Once you know what speaks to you and sings to you, it's easy to do the rest. And then we can help you with the expertise of how to treat the pot, how to take care of the pot, and what you can pair it with in order to give that lifelong satisfaction that you're looking for out of something. So that's always my approach, at least.
I'm so inspired right now.
Oh,
I'm freaking
Jana,
out.
You have no idea, because every once in a while I'll go out and design a house. We still need to do yours, and yes. I'm just thinking, I have a big glaring hole in my repertoire, and that is pots, sculpture, water features. I mean, to hear her talk about it is just absolutely inspiring. I'm like, completely neglected an entire major aspect of landscape design. Completely.
Well, and I've never thought, now I'm thinking, I'm never going to look at my container plants again. I love container plants. I have many, many, many of them, but I've never truly invested in what you're talking about, right? I've got the cracking terracotta and but I've never really bought anything that matters and that is, like you said, going to last forever and tell a story, from year to year. And I'm going to now. I'm so inspired right now.
Well, the cool thing is that it starts like, there's small pots that are, $10 or $15 that you can use for your house plants, but they still have that same attention to detail that literally are just so fun to pick them out and to reflect your personality and to reflect your style. And, the other thing too, when you talk about integration into the landscape, that's a huge deal for us, especially coming from the desert in St. George, is the fact is, this is how you can do color. This is how you can go a little extravagant on certain things, but still keep it contained and not break your water budget. So we work with our clients down there all the time to run a separate drip line for what's on their pots versus what's on their landscape so that they can still have that patio that's reflective of, we have a lot of people that move there from Salt Lake or California or, Minnesota, and they want something that still feels like home to them. And this is how we can give that to them. And I find the same thing is true up here. Cameron and I have talked at length, as I'm sure you have, about the water crisis that we face all the time and how being in a position where he's a grower and I'm a retail garden center, we get to direct people in a direction that gives them the feeling that they want to have and still is not irresponsible because, let's be honest, we've been pretty irresponsible when it comes to our water consumption, and that is going to fast, change, I hope. But pottery and incorporating that in the right way is one of those ways that you can still get your fix and be responsible.
I love this. I am so excited to keep talking to you. We'll be right back after this right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
860 KKAT with Jenna Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. She really does have the nicest yard on the block. It's Gardening Utah with Jenna Francis on 860 KKAT.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jenna Francis, and I'm having the most fun today with Niki Hancock, who is the CEO of Botanicals, and Cameron Alcott with Progressive Plants. So, Niki, I'm thinking about, okay, now I really want to invest in some of these amazing pieces and pots and, incorporate them into my landscape. If I'm going to your store for the first time, where do I even get started?
Well, it's a great question. And a lot of times people walk in and it's almost like what Cameron was describing earlier is you walk in and it's just this almost overwhelm, right? Like, oh, there's so much here. And knowing what to start. So I really do encourage people to come and wander around for a minute, get a feel for it, but to come prepared with what it is that you want to accomplish. What are your goals? What are you trying to do? And if it's, you're going to find something that you love, I guarantee it. So falling in love with a piece of pottery is not going to be the hard part. It's knowing how you want to incorporate it. And I think there's a great Steve Jobs quote about great design is not just how something looks, it's how something works. And so we really like to guide our customers through that process too of how it works. So, I want this beautiful pot. Where do you want it? Do you want it inside? Do you want it outside? If it's inside, is it in a place where something can drain, or do we need to seal that up? And we can absolutely seal the pots so that they don't ever leak. Or we want drainage, or we want it next to our pool, or we want it to integrate like right into the ground, or we're looking for a water feature indoor out. So those are some of the questions that we start with is what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve with the pot? And then we just kind of go from there, choosing the color palette that you want. If you're using it as a water feature, let's bring it over and run a hose over it so you can see how the glaze changes with water, because it does. And some of the glazes look entirely different depending on the light that they're in. And so some have a subtle sheen, or some even have a little sparkle to them. And it's so fun to play with that. I tend to always ask people a lot of questions about textures and what they want to put in it. Is it something that's going to remain forever? Like, we're huge supporters of the Bonsai Club of Utah, and we actually have the largest bonsai supply in the state of Utah at our Sandy store, because we've really cultivated that. So are you looking for something that's very sculptural? Are you going to plant something and leave it there forever? And I mean, we have big trees too. They'll come in and sculpt some of our evergreens there on the lot for us, but is it going to be there forever? Is it something that you want to replant 2 or 3 times a year because it's right next to your front door and it's supposed to set off your architecture? So those are some of the things to think about as you come in, is what's the outcome that you're looking for, so we can help you design a successful experience around it.
Yeah, that was, this, what you're talking about is something that really impressed me about you from right off the bat, was you can cater to whatever level of extravagance that somebody would want. I mean, if it's just something very simple, because not everybody's going to be like, hey, I want this incredibly extravagant and intricate piece of artwork. Sometimes I just want something very simple. But the gamut of people that you can cater to, I thought was absolutely astounding. And it's something you don't really see anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I just was like, this is a really cool like company and person and entire team that you have. Because I've talked to your son too, and he's a smart cookie, and he just kind of understands a lot of stuff. And I'm just like, this is so cool. It's like you have something for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and we love to provide that experience too and scale it to what people are looking for. So like, for example, if you wanted a water feature, you can come in, pick it out, we'll build it for you, we'll deliver it to you, we'll level it for you. A lot of people want to do that on their own and they want that experience. And so then we can show you how to do it. We can sell you the components. You can do it yourself and then call us when you mess it up. Just kidding. But, it happens a lot. I will say that it happens a lot. But we do want to be very approachable. It's, and there's a price point for everybody. I mean, one of the first years that we bought the pottery store, we came up for Mother's Day weekend, which is always the biggest weekend for us. And there were these boys that must have been in the neighborhood. They showed up on their skateboards and they just really wanted something for their mom. And it was one of my favorite experiences, because they wanted something that was pretty expensive. They had like $11 between them. And so I put them to work. I said, all right, how much do you love your mom? Pull those weeds back there, do this. And we ended up like spending 2 hours with these kids and sending them out the door, because then it really meant something. And I guess that's one of the things that's kind of at the core of one of our company values, is that we believe that what we do actually makes a difference. We want you to believe that too. We want you to have an experience that actually means something. And at the end of the day, as I've said to Cameron a bunch of times, like, we get to work in an industry where our job is to make the world more beautiful, more peaceful, and more healthy. How bad can it be? Like,
right?
It's the best.
Not going to argue with you. I mean, I wouldn't trade my job for anything.
I love that. That is such a good quote. And that should be like the new theme of my show too. I'm just like thinking, I love this. So where are you usually at? Are you at the store in Kaysville or at the location in Sandy?
So right now I am mostly at the location in Kaysville, and that's just more of a necessity right now. I hope that will plane out in a minute, and I'll be bouncing back and forth pretty equally between the 2 locations and out and about and around. But getting the new garden center started up in Kaysville, especially this year, has been a very steep education on so many levels, from supply chain issues to labor shortages to just understanding how that facility works, because anytime you come into a new space, there's a lot of that's on the, just on the ground. And it's been 20 plus years since I lived in Salt Lake, and reacquainting myself with some of the climate things has been fun too. And so most days you will find me at Kaysville. But I set appointments at both places, and And I'm in constant communication. As Cameron mentioned, my son Dallin is actually our manager at our Sandy store. And I'm a very proud mama. He's worked his way up through the ranks for sure, but he does a great job and we're in touch all the time. So yeah, most days I'm in Kaysville.
Gotcha. All right, we'll be right back after this right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. 860 KKAT with more of the fastest growing show on radio. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and with me today is Cameron Alcott with Progressive Plants and Niki Hancock, the CEO of Botanicals. Thank you so much for being here again. We're having so much fun, and now we're at the time of the show where I'm starting to ask guests a new question because it came up in a show 2 weeks ago, and the reaction was so fun that I'm going to just do this to every guest from now on, and it is this. We're going to start with Niki. What is your current favorite plant?
Jana, you cannot do this to me. I'm serious.
She's shaking her head, listeners. Like
really?
It's like saying, who's your favorite child?
Or what's my favorite pot? It's the plant that I happen to be looking at the time, perhaps. I literally walk around the garden center and fall in love with something new all the time, every single day. I mean, constantly. And, the fact that I get to smell the roses and taste the strawberries and eat my breakfast and lunch off the tables is a joy. I don't, okay, I will do this. I'll do my best. On my back deck right now, I have planted a very cool pot that I wanted to be my homage to 4th of July sparklers. And so I have some Nyphophia, and I've got the ornamental onions that are just starting to pop right now that look like sparklers. And I love them. And I've got papyrus grass and some blonde ambition. I know that's not one plant, but I cannot tell you how every day I walk out and it makes me so happy. And I'm like, yay.
You know what? Those ornamental onions, the alliums, they are so cool.
They're beautiful.
When I was in Michigan at the Spring Meadow thing, the other week, it was so cool. They planted fields of these ornamental onions, and they were all popping all at once.
Oh.
I mean, mass plantings of everything. And I was like driving by, and I almost drove off the road.
Yeah,
because I'm staring at plants. So, I mean, it's just cool. So that sounds like a really cool planter, though.
Yeah.
Those Bootaluas, though, those grandma grass, I guess. I mean, everybody, blonde ambition is what you said that you had.
Mm-hmm. I've got some of that in. I've got several kinds because I love as a backdrop to have the movement of grass and then have a few things that are like my architecture. So I've got some cannas in there too, and some ice plant trailing out the edge. But that was the whole idea. Is I wanted stuff to look like it was literally exploding at every single level in the planter.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not really known for my container planting skills, but this year we did something similar. I just did like those big canna lilies, and then we did a bunch of lantanas and some supertunias and some calibrachoas. And then there's a dichondra that just that really silver thing that just kind of like cascades down.
Yeah.
It's like octopus tentacles.
Yes. You know what else I love is what you sent me, those angel wings. Oh my gosh. I've got those on my front porch. Yes. So on my front porch, because I need a little privacy screening, I've got some clematis and the Vining Morning Glory, not the bad kind, the beautiful, humongous blue ones. And then I've got a collection of Coleus and Celosia, and I've got a couple of those as the accent because they're just so pow. They just hit you right in the face. Beautiful. Love those. Plus I pet them when I drink my tea in the morning.
I know. They're so soft. You can pet them.
I love this. See, this is why I asked this question, because you probably didn't realize both of your faces lit up like crazy. And so that's what I discover happens. I just did this with the Conservancy Garden Park and Mike Lawrence and Natalie Boyack there, the lead horticulturist, I just threw out, hey, what's your favorite plant? What are you guys loving right now? And they went from like this to
wait. Mike's a yellowhorn, right?
Mike's was tree
Not
peony.
the yellowhorn?
Tree peony.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And I immediately went to your website to see if you had any, and you don't.
Oh, I've got some. They're hiding.
Okay.
I'm thinking, Cameron, that we could develop our own like Rorschach blot ink test for plant geeks about learning all kinds of psychological things about people. What do you think, Jenna? Like,
totally.
You know what? I think there's something. I think you're onto something. I did not peg Mike for that. I thought he'd be like, "Yep, this is the yellowhorn that's in our garden." It's
Yeah.
I picked him for like a tree guy.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Person.
So Cameron, you're not escaping the question. So what's yours?
Oh, no. You're not doing that to me. I might have to borrow the line of my good friend Jim. My favorite plant is the one that's in the back of somebody's car, driving away with it.
There you go.
I remember Jim saying that.
That's my favorite plant.
Right.
Honestly, I'll tell you what my favorite plant is a little bit later on. It's because it's going to be the plant of the week segment.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, if I was a bedding woman, I would say maybe At Last Roses or some variety of hydrangea.
I almost guessed the same thing, Jana.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. The At Last Rose, that was going to be my guess.
It used to be hydrangeas. There used to be a particular hydrangea, but it's getting discontinued or has been discontinued. And there hasn't been another hydrangea that I'm just like, holy cow, this is amazing, because there's so much development going on that they still, I realize that there's a lot that I don't know about breeding, especially after you go to a breeder who specializes in breeding. And so now I'm just like, wow, the perfect hydrangea has to be this and this and this and this and this. I'm like, they haven't done it yet. So
you're such a hydrangea snob
anymore. That's because I'm really good at growing them.
Yeah.
Really good.
Good answer.
But honestly, like right now, I think it's a little bit seasonal for me. Like what I'm really impressed with right now, I think, are a lot of the Pugster butterfly bush. They smell good. They're small. They're compact. They don't require any maintenance. And the amount of wildlife that they attract is just unbelievable. I mean, the butterflies are just amazing. I mean, when I was at Spring Meadow, I mean, we were looking at the test gardens of different butterfly bushes they were doing. And guess what happens? A whole bunch of monarchs just come through and then just feed on it, and then they fly away again. And that was like, to me, like the most beautiful thing in the world, because I haven't seen a monarch butterfly and I don't even know how long.
Right.
You know? So it was really kind of cool to just see that kind of like rolling through in Michigan. So, but hey, Niki, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Like, I know you've taken over, your nursery up in Kaysville. And the one thing that really kind of stood out to me after we kind of talked for a little while is you just had like a really unique sense of style and I think business sense and what you're trying to, and you just have like these grandiose ideas. And I was just, thinking like, maybe the listeners would want to know a little bit about what your goals are with Botanicals up at Kaysville. Because I know you're taking over, for a company that wasn't really known for having like a retail presence per se. And that's obviously something that you were very, very skilled in. And what can people expect when they are visiting your garden center?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll try not to go on for too long about it because one of the first things I think is that for us, the customer experience is central. I grew up in my dad's greenhouse, and he focused very much on bedding plants, vegetable starts, and then he would do poinsettias at Christmas time. And I shouldn't say that in the past tense, he still does. But I would see customers come in and always feel like it was their fault if something went wrong. And a lot of time there's just a knowledge gap, right? There's always a reason, and people don't need to necessarily blame themselves. Not that there's not tons of human error in the mix, but to me, it's just always an opportunity to teach people. So I want our business to move in a direction where people can find the information that they need to be successful, number one. Number two, the selection of what we provide for them is super important. Like I talked about with the WaterWise plants. I want us to carry the staples, of course, of what you need, but I really want this to be a place where people can come and find some funky things that maybe they've never seen before, or that, again, we are able to put it together in a way for them that they've never seen before. That's the creative expression part that I think is really an important part of anything that we do as human beings that we find rewarding. It's when we get to use our own creativity and we get to be a part of the process. So as much as we can help people achieve that, I mean, it's just the most fun thing to do. I'm not really big on competing with other businesses. I really, really believe down to my toenails that if you do what you do as well as you can do it, that like your tribe will find you and they will take that. And I really don't spend a lot of time worrying about trying to compete with other places about what they're doing and what we're doing. We're going to do our thing and we're going to do it to the best of our ability and hope that people find us. We do kind of feel like the best kept secret this year, I will say. And I think part of that's because Tri-City made the decision mid last year to just step out of retail. And they, that was an aspect of their business that they did not, that they decided not to keep. And it's a totally different model. I mean, wholesaling to contractors is a totally different animal than retail sales. And I get it. And they recognized it, but they also recognized that it would hurt both sides of the business if they just let that go. So we put up a fence between our locations. And even though they're kind of still in the same location as we are, we're going to be operating totally separately. So as we look forward to this next season and especially to spring of 2022, that's what we want. I also really feel like there's the time that we are in right now, these unique human circumstances that our society finds ourselves in, that there is a well-being aspect that we have an opportunity to help provide for people. So whether it is the high-end design aspect of curating something that is completely unique or one of a kind, or it is that 7-year-old who wants to grow their first garden. Oh my gosh, again, I'm getting chills again because there's nothing that I love more than working with kids. And when you come to Botanicals, I eat off the tables. I'm always like, here, try these strawberries. Here, did you pick that tomato? Like, taste it, smell it, experience it. I want people to come and have an experience. We're almost done. We're so close to having our greenhouse ready to start bringing tropical plants into. I hope people feel comfortable enough that they can come and on their lunch break and just oxygenate in the greenhouse, just come and hang out with the plants. It will change your life. And so, you threw out the word grandiose, Cameron. I mean, maybe that's just my narcissism talking, but really, honestly, I have the aspiration that when people come to our place, that they have a life-changing experience. That's all. I just want people to have a life-changing experience every time they come. Is that too much to ask?
And this is why you and I are friends.
And my mic just dropped. That was amazing. Niki, thank you so much for being on the show today. This is just
my pleasure.
Fun. And Cameron, thanks to you too. And I cannot wait to have you both back on the show.
Well, I can't wait to have you come visit me in real life, Jana. We need to do this. So
definitely will.
This needs to happen. We should do a lunch date.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast, Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.